Good evening, everybody. This is Two Way Tonight. I'm Mark Halperin. Thank you for being here. Tough day. If you watched just an hour or so ago, the arraignment of remote arraignment of the murder suspect in the assassination of Charlie Kirk, it's a little bit chilling, at least for some of us. And Robert Redford died, which sad thing. I have long said that there's so many famous people now. We have so many more famous people than ever in human history that we're going to regularly see lots of people who were very iconically famous die. But for some of us, he'd be in the top tier. At least three great political movies: All the President's Men, 3 Days of the Condor, and The Candidate. And this little snippet from The Candidate is really one of the great scenes of all time in any movie about politics. This is Robert Redford, the classic line, "What do we do now?" after he wins his election. Here is The Candidate.
Okay, you got to get out there. See, I told you they beat me.
Marvin, what do we do now?
Wait a minute, what?
If you've never seen the movie, that line may be lost on you, why it was such an iconic line, but great movie. Anyway, thank you for being here. If you want to be in on the conversation, please raise your hand. If you're here on the two-way platform, if you're watching on X or on YouTube, as always, please extend peace, love, and understanding, the presumption of grace to all, to everyone involved here. And do not put any smack in the chat. Extraordinary how much smack goes in our chat and how much is on the internet and social media. Depressing. President talked a lot before he left for London. He's landed in London, where he's gone to visit for a couple days. There's some substance on the trip, some trade issues, some security decisions, and a lot of pomp and circumstance. And we're told a press conference, I believe, on Thursday. So there will be news out of the trip. The president made a lot of news on lots of topics before he took off. We'll show you some of that. As I said, there's the arraignment. And then there's other reaction. Governor Shapiro gave a speech about global hate today. We'll play you some of that. Let's see. Governor Bashir is going to New Hampshire. And there's a few other odds and ends. Anyway, I'll do a little bit more news. We'll bring our guests in. They're not all here yet. One of our guests tonight, Mark Caputo, does not adhere to George W. Bush's admonition that late is rude, because he's a busy guy. So he will join us, Mark Caputo. Eliana Johnson, editor-in-chief of the Washington Free Beacon, the smartest people I know, will be here. And Jimmy Hart. Jimmy Hart is a former president of the Metal Trades Department, guy from Brooklyn. And I'll tell you when we bring Jimmy in a little bit about his history with two-way, but couldn't be happier to have all three of them here and to have all of you here. So again, please raise your hand if you want in on the conversation. And now, hold on one second as I shuffle around here. A brief word from one of our sponsors. And this sponsor is Cozy Earth. And the reason I'm distracted is because I'm dealing with some complexities on my iPad. So give me a moment. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Anyway, Cozy Earth, our sponsor, they're a great sponsor. They've been our sponsor for a while, and we love having them here. They produce extraordinarily comfortable clothing. They're stuff that wicks away moisture, wicks away heat, made from viscose from bamboo. You can get a big discount, 40% off their entire stock if you go to cozyearth.com. Put in the code two-way. Regular viewers of these programs know I'm big into the pants. The pants are extremely comfortable. Talk to yet another satisfied customer today. Someone who bought the pants at my recommendation. And again, consistent pattern. Spouses see the pants. They're not concerned with comfort, the spouses. The spouses say, those look really good. I like the cut of your jib, my spouse. So I recommend them to you. The bedding is great, comes with a big warranty, and return them after 100 days. But shirts are good too. I wear my t-shirt on a regular basis, but I recommend the pants. You're just, I'm a one-note wonder. Anyway, built for real life, made to keep up with yours, Cozy Earth. I recommend them to you. as you know. Thank you for your attention to this matter. All right, back to a little bit more news. I'll be told, are all our guests here, or we're still waiting for some of them?
Caputo's getting on. He was
Who's getting
having.
on? All right, let's bring folks in. We'll do the news together. Jimmy Hart is here. Mr. President, thank you for joining. Jimmy Hart, who's going to tell you a little bit about how he became a president. Early on in the history of two-way, we did a pilot, and we had on Judy Shelton, who Donald Trump nominated to be on the Fed. She was never confirmed, and Jimmy Hart, and they were spectacular. And I can tell you that had they not been so good in colloquy, two people extending the presumption of grace to each other and talking about things on which they disagreed in a spirited but respectful way, I don't know that we would have continued with two well. So very grateful to Mr. Hart. Mr. Hart, welcome in, Mr. President. Tell folks how you became a plumber and how you became a union president, if you would.
Well, Mark, thank you so much for having me. It's always great to be with the two-way family. It's a long journey. That's 4 generations old. We're plumbers from Brooklyn. We're born in Brooklyn. We're raised in Brooklyn. And God willing, we die in Florida. You know, that's our dream. That's our dream. You know, it's all about being fair day's work for fair day's pay and living an honorable life with dignity.
Love having you here. Eliana Johnson, who's the editor-in-chief of the Washington Free Beacon. I was at a meeting today with a bunch of people who have worked now or have worked with Eliana, and we all basically agreed, smartest person we know. And one of her former colleagues told a very funny story about her editing style on pieces, which I won't share now without her permission. Eliana, welcome in. Thank you for joining.
Thanks for having me.
You've never been a plumber, have you?
No,
Do you know?
I'm not big on the manual labor.
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure if Jimmy would come out of retirement if he needed him, but you could do worse. Thank you both for joining. Do you guys know each other?
No.
I don't know.
No.
Nice
Well,
to meet you.
glad to have you here. And Mark Caputo will be here in a minute. I want to start. It's such a ridiculous day. Go ahead and put up number 1. Noah, do we have any video from the hearing? From the arena?
We have stills. We have two stills.
Okay. You can put up number 1. He was arraigned this afternoon about 5 o'clock. I think it lasted maybe 15 minutes. Charlie Kirk shooting suspect appears in court after being charged with murder. He appeared remotely. He didn't say much. He was asked to say his name. The judge, I'm a pretty sophisticated student of judges and who understands how to do this and who doesn't. And this judge seems good, I will say, based on just today's brief hearing. He's getting an attorney. The guy who represented him today is not going to be his attorney. There you see, if you're listening on the podcast, we're looking at a still. You can see the acting, basically, defense lawyer, the accused, and the judge. And Mrs. Kirk asked for a restraining order or protective order against the accused, that he's confined, but you can imagine why she asked for that. And there's another hearing coming up. Not much else happened. They read the charges, and he's facing a lot of charges, including they've asked for the death penalty for the crime of the murder, but there are other charges as well. A bunch of stuff I want to show you from the president, but Mark Caputo is here. I want to ask you all about the debate that's much on my mind that has to do with a lot of these free speech issues. The Attorney General has said some things in the last couple of days that caused even some criticism on the right about her view of the First Amendment. And people on the right continue to ask people to be fired from their jobs for saying things suggesting pleasure at the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Here's what I want each of you to weigh on. People on the right are saying when people on the left had people canceled, it was for political views. It was not for the championing of the murder of someone. And people on the right are saying that's a principal difference, that it's okay to say people should be fired and pressure employers to fire people if the speech crime is to cheer on someone's murder, and that's in a principled way different than saying someone should be fired because of some other view. Eliana Johnson, is that a view you credit or don't know, or how would you describe your attitude towards that point of view?
Sort of summarized my my piece in the Free Press today with a subtle and nuanced headline that was "Fire them all." But what I really tried to take on in that piece was the notion that's being advanced in a lot of corners of the mainstream. It was in Axios's morning newsletter yesterday morning. It was in Politico Playbook this morning, in an Associated Press piece yesterday, that this is the right embracing cancel culture. And I think that is totally wrong. I think cancel culture was an attempt to establish new norms for speech, where something you couldn't say yesterday, something you could say yesterday, like there are two genders, you can't say today, you're going to get fired for it. It's always been wrong to cheer people's murders. We shouldn't tolerate that. It's totally okay to fire people for doing that. And in many cases, these people are educators. I've been struck by how many of the people who've been fired work either in elementary or secondary schools or on university campuses, where they're saying this undercuts their ability to carry out the mission that they're supposed to do, which is to inculcate civic virtue or cultivate a atmosphere of free and open debate. So absolutely, a lot of these people should be fired, and this is not cancel culture, which I really think is the debate that we're having.
What are the other things people could say that you would say would be firing offenses, but not cancel culture, besides expressing joy at the death of someone, at the murder of someone? What else would be a firing offense in your point of view?
Sure. I think if somebody has said, the Nazis were right, Hitler was really great, like these are views that most of us consider beyond the pale, and that that it's good for our society to be beyond the pale. If I were these employers, I'd say thank you for bringing these views to my attention. I don't want this person working for me.
Let me ask you one more, and then I want Jimmy to weigh in, and then Mark. What if a university president said men are better at math than women? Is that a firing offense?
No, I don't think so.
Why not?
Because actually, another category that I wanted to address in my piece bears directly on this, which is controversial views that are grounded in science. So I would put Charles Murray in this category, Larry Summers in this category, where there's some scientific evidence to back these views. So I think that's another one.
Would someone be fired if they said Irish people are better at math than Portuguese people? Would you fire that? Would that person be subject to firing? The university president said Irish people are better at math than Portuguese
I don't
people?
think it's like dangerous for civil society for people to go around saying that.
Okay. Jimmy Hart, what's your view on whether the right has a point or not, that they're calling for people to be fired? It's not canceling them. It's simply holding them accountable for saying something improper and out of bounds.
Mark, it's a very interesting and complex issue. You either believe in the First Amendment or you don't believe in the First Amendment. And whenever you're picking and choosing winners, we go into dangerous territory. In my mind, an employer has a right to separate from anybody that offends him or is contrary to their business philosophy or beliefs. However, for us to promote it as a society and to go out there and tell people to fire people, I don't think that's society's place. First Amendment, love it, leave it. You just can't. It's not like going into a cafeteria and picking and choosing whatever works for you at a given time. Democracy is tough. Abiding by the First Amendment is tough, and just in general.
I say this professionally. I love you both, and I love the way both of you expressed your point of view on this, even though you don't agree. And I don't know if I made it clear from the way I'm asking these questions. I'm really torn on this stuff. Here's what I'm not torn on, Mark Caputo. The left is saying, "Oh my God, cancel culture. This is so horrible. The right is so hypocritical. They were against cancel culture, and now they're for it." And for 2 decades, the left cheered on cancel culture. So they may say the right's being hypocritical, but they would have to bear some measure of that same designation, wouldn't they?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I don't exactly know what a petard is. I know it's a medieval siege weapon.
But yes, the left is being hoisted on as perhaps the only, well, maybe not the only person here, as someone who actually got fired for his private speech on a private Instagram account by a prior employer for making an intemperate joke about someone. I can say, yeah, employers have a right to do that. Not saying it's fair, not saying it's right, but it happens. I don't have a good frame of reference about who was canceled in the past for what. So I can't say now to the degree that Republicans are either out of bounds or in bounds with that. Is there sort of a cancel culture-y thing here? Yeah, sure. But is it necessarily bad? Not necessarily. Like, how many people lost their jobs because they said George Floyd got what he deserved, or, George Floyd was a terrible drug addict and, said all these offensive things and said, but, he didn't deserve to be kneeled on and killed or whatever. I don't know. So that's not the sort of thing I track. And in the end, this sort of just, I think a lot of us, this just becomes more sort of background noise of the left and the right fighting each other.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems like the question is like, should a line be drawn anywhere? And like the right and the left are debating where should yes, like basically everybody agrees there should be a line drawn somewhere. And like the left drew it way too far, to the middle and arbitrarily.
Right. Jimmy, I don't know if you over the last 2 decades have spoken out against the left canceling people for speech. But do you think Democrats now should be some self-reflective if they want to say they're troubled by what's happening, that they should say, well, we probably made a mistake at pressuring employers to fire people for speech previously?
Cancel culture is a mistake. It's a horrific mistake. It's people overstepping their bounds and their authority. To the truth be told, organizations that I've been involved with over the years have had policies that both the workers and the employers agreed upon that set up boundaries for where you spoke, how productivity was designed to alleviate all these things. But absent that, most of the workforce is not subject to to those type of conditions. Again, if what you say hurts a business, that business has a right to separate from you. Okay, you don't have the right to offend anybody, and if you do offend somebody, then you got to be able to take it as well as you can give it. And taking it means maybe losing your job. I myself, my friends on the right and the left, I would discourage them ever from canceling anybody, because everybody in any given situation can make a mistake.
Yeah, I'll put you on the spot a little bit. Have you been outspoken about that for the last 2 decades as the left has tried to cancel people?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I've been at odds with many people in my circle over not only the cancel culture, but in America, you're either on top, you're in the bottom. It's very rare that you're in the middle. And we tend, and one day, especially in the two-party system, one day you're on the top, the next day you're on the bottom. And that's the beauty of it, that they can both recover. Democrats need to be self-reflective right now. Okay, they have to understand that, you gave it, now you're taking it, and this too shall pass.
Yeah. Governor Shapiro of Pennsylvania is not a perfect person or a perfect politician, but he's a very thoughtful person. And he spoke today at a conference about eradicating global hate. This is number 14, Sam, Governor Shapiro, on censorship and whether it is a good solution. 14, please.
We need to create more opportunities for peaceful and respectful dialogue, respecting each other's fundamental rights as Americans. Censorship, using the long arm of government to silence people, to silence businesses and nonprofits and restrict their right to free speech, well, that will not solve this problem. Prosecuting constitutionally protected speech will only further erode our freedoms and deepen the mistrust. That is un-American. There is a better way. There is a better way. And that better way is the Pennsylvania way.
What has happened? Where are we?
All right, let's bring everybody back in. Let's bring everybody back. Sorry
Disappeared.
about that. Yeah.
Scared.
Ileana, top of the show, I suggested I think these issues are tough, and that the Attorney General is getting some criticism for suggesting that she sees a more narrow view of First Amendment protections than I think most attorneys general of both parties have felt. Are you troubled at all by any of the things the Attorney General has said about the First Amendment?
Yeah, I admit to not being a huge fan of her vow to go after and prosecute hate speech, but also to being sort of confused by how she proposed doing that. It seemed a little nebulous to me, and I wasn't sure what action the AG and the Justice Department intend to follow from her proclamation. And I have to say, I won't be surprised if it's not much.
Yeah,
She already walked it back.
yeah.
So,
She walked it back a little bit.
Um,
I mean,
no,
she-
she walked it back.
not
she walked it
surprised
back.
to hear it.
She walked it back maybe as clearly as she walked it forward. It's still a little unclear to me.
I mean, she's saying she's going to go after violent, like people who inspire violence and incite violence.
Yeah.
So that she's sticking, she says, to the current standard.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was the issue of the Office Depot thing where, let's go after people who refuse to make photocopies of political flyers or posters we disagree with, but she dropped that as well. So I think it's pretty much kind of walk back and she misspoke. But
Jimmy, of all the things that the president, the vice president, and others in the administration have done since Charlie Kirk was assassinated, which one or ones trouble you the most in terms of things they've said or done?
In a normal situation, I'd be very troubled. I cut everybody slack at this time because Charlie Kirk was just more than a political operative, or he was part of their family. He was part of their inner circle. So I have empathy for them, and they're on the biggest platforms in the world, and they're out there expressing their grief. So I do cut them slack from that end. But at the end of the day, leaders lead, and they need to step up and they need to heal. They need to bring everybody together. They have to do it in the spirit of Charlie Kirk, and I believe they both have it in them. Vice President Vance was very articulate yesterday. The president's expressing grief, and again, I have more empathy than I am offended.
You're a man of extraordinary grace. Thank you for that. You're setting a great example because it's a very human analysis of what's going on, and certainly some of what they're saying now is a product of what you said. Kash Patel was on Capitol Hill today. Contrary to some people's expectations, Republicans were not particularly eager to question him in a rough manner, except a little bit on Epstein. But Democrats went after him pretty hard. Probably the toughest would be either Adam Schiff or Cory Booker. Let's play Booker, please, number 8.
I don't think you're fit to hand the bureau, but here's the thing, Mr. Patel. I think you're not going to be around long. I think this might be your last oversight hearing. Because as much as you supplicate yourself to the will of Donald Trump and not the Constitution of the United States of America, Donald Trump has shown us in his first term and in this term, he is not loyal to people like you. He will cut you loose. This may be the last time I have a hearing with you because I don't think you're long for your job. But I'm going to tell you this, I pray for you. I pray for you that you can step up and defend your oath, defend the Constitution, and do a much better job of defending this country. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Do you want to say anything?
Yes, sir. That rant of false information does not bring this country together. If you want to work on bringing this country, it's my time, not yours.
My God.
If you want to talk about
dividing this country,
it is
I follow you on your social media posts that tear this country apart.
To address your falsehoods.
Oh, you can try all you want
in this country.
To not take responsibility for what you have said. Sir, you're making a mockery of this committee. Sir, you don't tell me my time is over. The people of New Jersey tell me what my time is. You can't lecture me.
You can tell me my time's over.
You may be the charge of the
I'm not going anywhere.
but I am not afraid of you.
Mr. Chairman.
Not afraid of you.
Okay. I've been in Washington for a couple of days now, and there's a lot of conversation amongst Republicans about the status of both the Attorney General, who we've talked about here, and the FBI director. Here's the president earlier today at his departure from London, praising both of them. Number two, please.
First of all, I think that Pam Bondi has done an unbelievable job, and everybody agrees with that. And Cash, if you take a look at what he did with respect to this horrible person that he just captured. He did it in 2 days. It took other similar cases 4 days, 5 days, 4 years. If you look at certain shooters. Now, I have confidence in everybody in the administration. My administration, and a lot of people are saying it, not just me. It's so far the best administration ever formed.
So I typically
take that, Lincoln.
Yeah, exactly. I typically am not as interested in the personalities and the theatrics of the hearings than a lot of journalists are, and particularly now in the wake of an assassination. However, these are two really important jobs, obviously, head of the FBI and Justice Department, and there is persistent talk about it. So, Mark, are those two officials safe at this point? President,
I believe so. Yeah, I wrote a story to that effect yesterday with Cash, with Bondi as well. I think Donald Trump really likes Pam Bondi. He trusts her. That's why she's there. Now, would they leave after the midterms? Maybe one or both. I'm not quite sure, but I believe they would do so on their own terms. And a lot of the chatter around Washington and environs, I think, is just that.
Okay. One more topic on this, then I'm going to do a little bit more news, and we're going to take your questions from the community. So please raise your hand. I listen closely to people who are proposing solutions to where we are. And mostly it's just empty talk about, lowering voices and getting along and, whatever. People do talk about social media. Here's the president talking about social media today. Number 3, please.
Utah governor said that social media is a cancer and more people should log off and take some time away.
Well, it's not a cancer in all respects. In some respects, it's great. But there are segments, there are deep, dark holes that are cancerous, absolutely. Beyond cancer, they're death.
So each of you, Eliana, then Jimmy, then Mark, I'm very skeptical that this Congress or this administration will have the intelligence and determination to outwit the lobbyists for the media platforms, the tech media platforms. So if this is the solution people are waiting for, I doubt it, but I'm wondering what you think, Eliana. Is this a good thing to pursue? And if so, what are the chances of success?
I think it's a worthy thing to use the presidential soapbox to pursue, and for high-profile members of the administration to direct public attention to. But at the end of the day, like for people like the Kirk assassin and others, these are things parents should be talking to kids about, and the things really that parents and families can have the most influence over, and something that really they can make more of a difference with in terms of the lives of young children, particularly young men, as opposed to government.
Jimmy, one of the things we heard today in the red indictment was text exchange between alleged killer and his alleged roommate that certainly reinforces the view that social media was an issue here. What do you think of Eliana's critique that soapbox and parental involvement are the ways to address this?
Pam Bondi played to her base yesterday because she could. Okay, Patel today in Congress and Booker, they played to their bases today because they could. There was a time that we brought facts to an argument to make a point. Today, we just want to make everything go viral and anything goes. I've been around politics for so long and I've seen so many different personalities play out that I'm afraid to say that the only way this ends, I'm going to take you back to the Forrest Gump movie where he ran from coast to coast, back and forth, and then just one day, one spot, he decided to say, I don't feel like running anymore. And then things change. And I really believe that this is something that cannot be legislated out. Morals, we depend on our parents and our relatives and our friends and family to teach morals and to raise our children correctly. But at the end of the day, This is America, free and open exchange of ideas and the land of opportunity, and people just have to, it's going to have to just weed itself out.
Mark, this administration is maybe best equipped if they wanted to take on big tech because they have more expertise on tech than previous
I mean, they have
ones.
absolutely, I mean, come on.
But they're
Congress
not
and the Congress and the last president signed a law banning TikTok, and then Trump just decided not to follow the law. So the idea that there's going to be any regulation over there, we shouldn't fool ourselves over. And also to Jim's point, this is a demand side problem. We're on social media and hating each other and allowing the algorithm of rage to feed us because we want it. There's free cocaine being passed out in the drug den, and all of us are lining up with our mirrors, razors, and noses. And until that changes, I don't know what to tell you. Notably, I did 2 stories recently. One of the first stories in mainstream media, perhaps the first, depending on how you define mainstream media, on Saturday, about how the alleged shooter was in a romantic relationship with a transgender roommate and how that was a possible motive for him killing Charlie Kirk. And the left just dogpiled me. It's just some of this MAGA apologist and carrying the water. How dare you use anonymous sources? Well, that wound up being true. And then prior to that wind up being true, or at least the authority saying it was true, was another story about, hey, the left was blaming Groypers, the far right group, for this. And that's probably not true because of these other reasons. And we pointed these things out. And then after the indictment came out, or the information, after the prosecutor said clearly the facts that, you know, we and others had reported, but not everybody, the amount of sort of cope from progressives, liberals, the left, or whatever you want to call it, on my Twitter feed is remarkable. These people here don't want to read facts that conflict with their priors. And I don't see any regulation out of that. And just to be clear that I've been sort of bipartisan about this, I get dogpiled unfairly by the right for a story I did about the North Carolina video of the murder that happened there and how it was becoming an issue in Republican politics and in sort of their messaging. This is a bipartisan demand side problem that regulation is not going to fix.
Okay, a little bit of news, and then we're going to get to folks' questions. So please raise your hand if you'd like to be in the conversation. Fannie Willis, the Georgia prosecutor who was doing the Trump case there, lost her appeal to try to stay on the case. Frankly, I thought that case was over, but today she lost her appeal. The president did a Truth Social victory lap. The president bashed Governor Newsom for building low-income housing in Pacific Palisades. President and the First Lady, as I said, arrived in London. Let's play 21, please. This is the President, the First Lady being greeted by the U.S. ambassador at the residence there. Okay, so the Fed met today for the 2-day meeting. We expect tomorrow a rate cut, either 25 or 50 basis points. Market's a little jittery. Number 24, please. Expecting the cut, but markets do what the markets do. So although we've been on an upward run, markets were down today. 24, please. S&P 500 eases a bit from record as traders await the big Fed decision. Market here brought to you by our sponsor, the Bahnsen Group. David Bahnsen and his folks at the Bahnsen Group Personal Wealth Management Company. You can see everything in the red there for those of you listening on that podcast. Recommend, if you want to know about the markets, want to know what's going on in the economy, David Bahnsen's newsletter. It's available for free. Good price, called Dividend Cafe. David writes it himself, and it is a great way to keep up with the economy. You can subscribe for free 5 days a week. Go to tway.tv/TBG, the Bahnsen Group, to get the newsletter for free and read it as I do every day. Thanks to them. All right, let's just squeeze in one more sponsor here because you all are very happy to know that we have a lot of sponsors on this program now. One more about losing weight, lean.com. Take lean.com, way to keep from weight cycling, yo-yoing up and down. It's not healthy to do that. It's a bad way to lose weight. So most people need help to stop doing that. Some people are turning to these shots, GLP-1 shots, injectables. This is another way to do it. And it's do it to in a way that's natural. Keep on your diet, maintain healthy blood sugar, control appetite and cravings, convert fat to energy, do all that with the products there. Go to their website. You get 20% off takelean.com with the code. Enter the code two-way. Go to the website, takelean.com, enter the code two-way for 20% off. Thank you to all our sponsors, and thanks to you for your attention to all of these matters. Grateful to you. All right, we're going to bring folks in, ask everybody, as always, tell us where you are, what's on your mind. Ask everybody to be, if you can, relatively brief, because we'd love to get a lot of people in. And let's, for our three great guests, and let's start with Mark. Mark, welcome in. Tell folks where you are, what's on your mind for Eliana, Jimmy, and Mark.
Good evening. I'm in Hillsborough, Missouri. I'm a small town lawyer. Hillsborough is south of St. Louis. And before I was with my current firm, I was a big city prosecutor in St. Louis County and handled some death penalty cases. And I was kind of surprised that they announced very early on that they were seeking the death penalty. I think they're going to have some problems in the state level prosecution with the death penalty because it's not just every murder. I'm not trying to minimize this particular case. It's obviously horrific, but you have to have aggravating circumstances that are an additional element that have to be proved. And I looked at I looked at the charge and I looked at the statute, and their aggravator is that this killing created a great risk of death to another person. Yeah, so usually if you have an aggravator, it's like multiple killings, or you have a serious criminal conviction, or it's, you're killing a witness or a police officer. None of those things apply. So what
Mark, let me interrupt you. I apologize. Is that a federal standard that applies to state cases?
No, I mean, each state is different. Like Missouri has 17 different types of aggravators. Utah, I think, has 15. The feds have different ones. Each state has their own, and you have to have an additional element to get the death penalty beyond a murder first.
But they cited one of the 15. You're just saying you don't think the facts.
Yeah, I mean, I think the problem they're going to have is that this is a bolt action rifle, and it was one shot. If he had sprayed the crowd, you're going to put more people in danger. The theory is going to be, well, he could have missed, or there could have been somebody behind Charlie. And so then he's putting these other people at risk. But, I think it's not a slam dunk. Let's just put it that way.
If you try someone for the death penalty and they're convicted, does that mean that you can't, if you don't want to give them, in other words, it would happen on appeal, or you think the district court, the trial court judge could throw it out? Like, where does that problem arise?
Yeah, it's gonna arise at the jury trial level, because they have to convince a jury of this additional element, and some time is going to pass between now and then. But they have to show that, I think if you have a good defense attorney, this guy can get up there and talk about how much target practice he did before the killing, and that actually ends up being a defense to that element.
Couldn't the jury convict him and then set aside the death penalty, but still convict him?
Yeah. So you usually have, like in Missouri, you have a two-phase. You have guilt phase, then you have penalty phase. So I assume Utah will have the similar process, so that you establish first that they're guilty of murder first, and then you have the aggravators, and you also have mitigators. Utah has the same system, and so then the jury has to weigh the aggravators and mitigators and make a finding that aggravators outweigh the mitigators, and then he's eligible for the death penalty verdict. It's a factual, I think they're having a factual issue, quite frankly.
Super interesting. Eliana, Mark, Jimmy, and if you want to comment on this.
I know nothing about it. Notably, they did really pile on the charges just in case one doesn't stick. So
and
the guy's at least going to prison for a while, I would imagine.
And in theory, even though I think it'd have the same problems potentially, they could come in with some federal charges too, right?
Well, the federal aggravators is much better if they have jurisdiction, because there's an aggravator that addresses premeditation, almost like an extreme premeditation, a planned killing, that Utah doesn't have a similar provision. Missouri doesn't either, but the federal government does. But most of these cases are going to be state level criminal charges. It's only if the federal court has jurisdiction over what is essentially a local criminal offense. So I would expect the feds are going to try to Bigfoot it, because I think they're going to have a big problem with actually proving beyond a reasonable doubt that he created a grave risk of death to other people when it's a single shot, bolt action. And I only saw the video once, and that was once too many for me, but I didn't notice anybody immediately behind him. The facts of the charges, they mentioned that there's a walkway behind him. They mentioned there's, other people in the crowd. And I think they're trying to establish that just taking a shot at somebody from that distance creates that grave risk to others. But they have to prove that there's a risk to other people beyond murdering Charlie Kirk.
Well, it'll be interesting, Mark. Thank you. It'll be interesting to see what kind of lawyer he gets. He does get entitled to a lawyer with capital experience, but it's going to be a difficult defense. David, welcome, and tell folks who don't know where you are what's on your mind for Eliana, Jimmy, and Mark.
Hello, I'm in Los Angeles, California. I'm actually on the campus of UCLA right now. I'm doing my PhD here in neuroscience. So I think there's been a lot of discussion, especially around the motive to this individual. A lot of it coming from social media, a lot of it coming from Discord. I suppose I'm a Zoomer, so that, and I've been watching the program for a while, but that there's a lot of this that seems that social media is sort of driving people up a wall. I do think that COVID played an enormous role. I see it with the undergrads that I teach here, in my own RAs. But I think a part of it is that there kind of is a mindset that a lot of I don't know, Zoomers on social media might have. Granted that maybe I'm not one of them, but at least can sympathize or at least understand where they're coming from. There seems to be this compelled need for empathy. I think there's a lot of discussion, certainly here on UCLA and others, that that there's this need for authenticity. And authenticity often comes from this sense of emotionality. And I think there's this super prevalent underlying feeling of FOMO by a lot of people. And so when people come out and see that Charlie Kirk is saying something, people leap to their phones, people leap to Instagram or Discord or whatnot, and they feel some need to like be a part of the conversation in this like really again, almost authentic kind of intentional way. And so a lot of the sort of blach that comes out on the internet from this is really driven by, I think, a lot of the Zoomers who are in some ways feeling like if it's online, I have to be a part of it. And if it's on, and so therefore I have to be a part of this discussion, even if it means that I'm saying something that is horrendous, like, he's not worth the ground he walked on. And I just think that the dynamics of like how the internet is around people under the age of 30 is really kind of distorting so much of this. And I think that's part of why you see these fire rankings coming out, fire speech things saying that violence is permissible and whatnot. So I just think that there's almost a massive attitude shift that I just see from my own friends who, again, we're all in our mid-20s. And so I think that's a huge factor there.
David, let me really smart. Let me get everybody to react. Eliana, thoughts on what David said?
Yeah, that seems spot on to me. Absolutely. And it still seems to me that there's a lot we don't know about the motivation for this murder, aside from he disagreed with Kirk's political views, but a lot more about the sort of subcultures that the alleged assassin may have been involved in, how deep he went into these internet groups. Like, we don't actually know that much about this, it doesn't seem to me yet. And I think we're going to find out a lot more about that between now and the trial, and then presumably in the trial. And I noticed that I thought the Utah district attorney, I think it was, who was up in front of the microphone today, was really excellent in his presentation of the facts, like totally dispassionate. But he noted that the FBI is still investigating other people as a part of this. And that caught my attention. Doesn't mean anybody else will be arrested in connection to it. But it does seem that there was a lot more going on around this with various internet subcultures that may or may not have played a large role over the past few years in this person's life. And I suspect we'll learn a lot more, but I'm sort of hesitant to jump to conclusions outside of the fact that he appears to have gotten more political over the past couple of years and, disagreed with Kirk's views.
Jimmy.
David, it's apropos that you're in Los Angeles today, because when you think about it, everybody on social media is no different than generations before. Everybody wants to be a star, right? Everybody wants to be the headliner. And in the world we're living in today, people don't measure their words anymore. They measure their likes. And whatever it takes to be popular, they're willing to do. And that's because they're not getting touched personally, right? In other words, social media, the beauty of it is that, well, the sin of it is that you're not accountable for what you say and how you say it. So we're in interesting times, and you're right in the middle of it, and I appreciate your input.
Mark.
I don't have much.
Okay. David, thank you. Very much appreciate it. Amber, welcome in. Tell folks that I know where you are.
I'm from Indianapolis. I just wanted to add to the Pam Bondi's statement conversation here. I had probably 15 people message me a post quoting her today saying absolutely not, all conservative. I think that I don't know if they were banking on conservatives having like short-term memory. But like I'm a nobody on social media, and I had posts taken down in 2021 and 2022. And I really don't think hate speech is somewhere that the majority of conservatives are willing to go.
Jimmy.
Well, I think that was evident today. A lot of conservative voices spoke out against the AG in her statements yesterday. Again, like in the beginning of the program, you either support free speech or you don't. Okay, the Constitution, obeying it is hard. As much as it cuts in our favor, sometimes it cuts right at our heart. So at the end of the day, the Attorney General knows she politicized the matter. She played to her base. Today, like Mark said, she tried to walk it back, and we're going to just move on. But that's going to become the new norm as opposed to what should be.
Mark.
Agree. Yeah.
Eliana had to go. I'd forgotten she had leave at a quarter up. So grateful to her.
Hardly knew you.
Yeah, Amber, thank you. Thank you, Amber. Appreciate it. That John Lawrence, welcome in. Tell folks who don't know where you are, what's on your mind for the group. After you unmute. Yep, all good.
Yes, there we go.
Well, I am in Rhode Island, and I kind of want to come back to, I wanted to raise a point that I feel like maybe I haven't heard, but so my son is 12. He's not on social media. Both my kids aren't, and he doesn't have a smartphone and probably won't until at least a driver's license or later. But he came back from school upset because he had heard about the Charlie Kirk thing, but also a bunch of his friends had it beamed into their faces to see a man shot through the neck. They're like 12 and 13-year-old kids. 13, they're allowed to be on TikTok by their standards, and TikTok just blasted that stuff into their faces. And my son had two things that he was upset about. One was that his friends saw this. He didn't end up seeing it himself, but that was worrisome. The second one was that, he doesn't have a politic in this at all. And people talk about sides, but there's another thing going on here that I at least view Charlie Kirk's killing as, which was, he said, the thing I'm scared of, Dad, is that people are going to attack me for things I say. And to that degree, that Charlie Kirk's murder was an attack on free speech itself. And to him, that was one of the scary things. And as I think about it more, I do think that a big part of this needs to be a discussion of social media, in part because social media is not free speech. It is a regulated speech by a company that then can decide who gets to have the microphone and who everybody else hears. And it does that through a series of algorithms that reinforce negativity. So I would like to see, I'm glad there's some discussion. Hopefully, I know it doesn't seem like there's a lot of political impetus to do it, but I guess my question is, from the standpoint of, do you guys also see Charlie Kirk's murder as free speech? And do you think there's maybe some will out there in public, at least, to start working on at least saying, we got to change these algorithms so they're not so negative?
I think I know what Mark's answer is, but Mark, when you go first, and then Jimmy.
Fatalistic, no. Like it's a Congress that's barely able to do anything, and and again, the president of the United States unlawfully ignored a lawfully passed law, and no one did anything about it regarding regulating one of what's probably the more pernicious online or social media platforms, TikTok. Nothing was done about it. I think that's past its prologue there.
Amongst the most damaging to children, plus communist infiltration of the United States, and still nothing.
I'm sorry to sound like one of the guys from Dr. Strangelove, but yeah, I think there's we can talk about precious bodily fluids or whatever, but it is not a good situation.
Jimmy, what thoughts about what John said, the story John told us about his son?
John, we can't depend on government to police our families and what they're exposed to anymore. It's an unrealistic expectation. But what's not unrealistic is the way that you're approaching the problem and the way that you're taking an interest in your son. In other words, you're not leaving your son despite your backdrop in the wilderness. In other words, when your son sees something, you're approaching it and you're discussing it with him. And parental involvement is more important now than ever before. We need to speak with our kids. We need to reason with our kids. We need to support our kids more so today than in any other generation, at least that I've been around. So I commend you for your approach, and I sympathize with you that we're not going to get much help.
John, is this a topic of conversation amongst you and the other parents? And is it still something on the kids' minds a week later?
So yes, it is definitely a topic that's still among other parents and still on kids' minds. At least it was yesterday. I didn't talk to him much today, but it is still something that is present. And then in terms of the Charlie Kirk killing, it definitely is. In fact, like I didn't talk to my son until I'd gone to like the school meetings, and the school meeting, we had like a school meeting, and they said, by the way, the kids were like talking about this today, so you might want to talk about it when you go home as well. But my son had already brought it up with me afterwards by that time. So yeah. And then the social media thing's a huge thing. I mean, they just outlawed the phones in schools for the first time, so at least there's progress there. Right. Because they were just having them in schools. I mean, that's nuts. And who knows? Maybe on a state level we can do some things or something like that. Just if net choice rules go through from that standpoint.
John, thank you. Please keep us posted. Grateful to you. Couple things. Many of you are seeing Jimmy for the first time because he hasn't been on in a while, and we've added so many new members of the community. And as people who are here regularly know, I do not read the chat, but I do glance at it. And I'm constantly, for the last week, looking for moments of light and happiness and joy. And Amber put in the chat, Jimmy, that she would like you to read every audio book. She would like you to be the voice of every audio book. So that brightens my day, because now I'm thinking about Jimmy reading The Great Gatsby and Game Change and all sorts of things. So
Mark, you say I talk funny? Is that what it is?
No, I don't know.
Funny like a clown.
I amuse you.
No.
A little Goodfellas action. Come on.
She thinks it's.
Why here for your amusement, Mark?
Yeah.
What am I, a clown?
She thinks as I do that you have a fantastic voice.
It's a shine box, Mark.
We could listen to you read anything. Fred, welcome in. Thank you for joining. Tell folks where you are, what's on your mind for Jimmy and for Mark.
I'm in North Carolina, and we're here in mourning for Irina Zaruska as well as Charlie Kirk. The violence continues. The interesting thing from the political science academics is the number one major driver of things going on is negative partisanship. And that's how they see it. And it's all about negative partisanship and hate. I have to agree with you, Jimmy, that, we have to have free speech. And the other thing that we see with everybody is belief perseverance. Everybody believes in what they believe, and they persevere in it and continue and push. And there's it's pretty hard to change this. And then what we're seeing with our kids is this cognitive dissonance, which is reinforced in the schools. Here, these kids are brought up in a certain cognitive cultural belief, and then all of a sudden they're presented with all these other counter beliefs and TikTok and everything that you get on the internet. And it's very confusing, and it's very difficult for them to interpret from a cognitive standpoint what is right, what is real, what isn't. And then they get into these different groups, such as this gentleman, and over a period of time, you have the radicalization of these kids in all different ways. And so it's a combination. If you look at what Charlie did, Charlie was one of the most powerful people in the world. There isn't a senator, a congressman, or anybody in the Trump administration that was more powerful than Charlie Kirk. He not only affected the schools, he affected the adults. He worked with Scott Pressler, with all of the Republican people. They were all adults across the country registering Republicans, and they did an incredible job. And Charlie was there in relationship to how we were working with the schools and trying to interdict with all of this going on with these kids. So Charlie was this incredibly powerful human being that a lot of people feared. And I think the left feared him very much so. And all of this that goes on with this negative partisanship, perseverance, and the cognitive dissonance. It's got these kids that are on all of these social media programs completely confused. And we're going to run into this more and more. We wonder, why is the violence in the trans people? Why is the violence? Because we have 1 in 4 people in this country have mental illness. And we haven't addressed that issue at all. And so when you add on all of these other things that happen through social media, it reinforces and accelerates mental disability, not only in the kids, but in all of us. Yeah. And so the political system in this country is just completely a mess now.
Fred, thank you for standing by. Jimmy, quick thought, and then Mark.
The miscreant in Utah assaulted free speech and deserves the death penalty.
Thank you, sir. Mark.
Couldn't agree more. I guess I'm feeling bleak these days. One thing to just think about for us old folks going forward is this 22-year-old man belonged to a generation that grew up in the post 9/11 world, the modern creation of the surveillance state. They started to become conscious around the economic crash in 2008. They went to school and were taught from a young age school shooting drills to hide from madmen who would come into schools and shoot them to death. They've witnessed their parents in a situation. They've witnessed their parents telling them, do the right things and you can get ahead, and they're realizing that's no longer really the case. The barriers to entry to buy a house are higher than ever, and the ability to buy a car is really difficult for a lot of folks. A lot of aspects of the American dream have frayed, and it's really come into sharp focus for this young generation. And punctuating all of this for them was the pandemic lockdowns and how we all sort of lost our minds. Yeah. And so you add all those things together, and it's almost a wonder we don't have more people cracking up at that young age.
Yep. Well said. Mark and Jimmy, I'm so grateful to you both, and for Eliana for being on and for sharing. Jimmy, hope you'll come back regularly. We love having you here.
Thanks. Good seeing you, Mark.
Thank you both.
Good night.
Good night. All right. A few things real quick before we go. Recorded another episode of Next Up. It's available now as a podcast and on YouTube. And the one thing that was said that I didn't agree with, that Fred said. He said Democrats were threatened by Charlie Kirk. I don't think they understood Charlie Kirk. In my reported monologue after talking to Democrats and Republicans for a couple of days is about why Charlie Kirk meant so much to conservatives and how so many of the things about him didn't go to an Ivy League school. lived out west, didn't graduate from college, was a religious conservative, liked Trump. So many of the biographical things about Charlie Kirk are threat to the establishment, antithetical to the establishment, people on both coasts. So particularly if you're a Democrat, I'd urge you to listen to it. If you don't understand why Charlie Kirk meant so much to all the millions of people he meant so much to, including the president, I'd urge you to listen to that. And then was in the mood for a little lightning. So I talked to my colleague at Macon Kelly Network, Maureen Callahan, host of The Nerve, about pop culture. A little bit of relief there. Turn now to two-way. Michael Moynihan's guest, Mary Catherine Ham. So right now, program's underway. Mary Catherine Ham on the Moynihan Report, and I'll see you tomorrow at 9 a.m. Eastern Time with Sean and Dan. I hear they did excellent without me today, but I'll still be back tomorrow inexplicably on the morning meeting at 9 a.m. Grateful to our guests and to all those who raised their hands and asked questions, and to all of you for being part of this community. Go watch Michael Moynihan. We'll see you tomorrow. Good night.